Right, how are you doing? Thank you so much for making time and of course joining us right here on the program. Debate 411 is the name of the show. How to get in touch with us is very simple. Always tweet us at Debate 411 or you can tweet me directly at Eugene and Nangwe. Every 8th of March, the world all over celebrates the International Women's Day, and of course focus is usually put on various issues depending on the focus that particular year. This year the theme is Pledge for Parity, and of course a number of activities have been lined up to celebrate this event right here in the country. We'll also be looking at of course a global women's summit that is going down right here in Rwanda. We'll get to understand more about that. But today we are putting the gender agenda on the agenda right here in Debate 411. My name as always is Eugene and Nangwe. Let me introduce my panelists on the program. 2 of them have made it, 2 have not. But of course we'll have to go on with the program. I have none other than Melaine Hoken. Thank you for joining us on Debate 411.
Good to be.
You're the founder of Lionesses of Africa. And of course that's an interesting one. Why did you pick that particular name, Lionesses of Africa?
It all started because I was doing some research for a book that was based on inspirational women entrepreneurs across the African continent who have become game changers and are literally opening up a whole new world of opportunities for women, particularly young millennials, to realize their dreams by becoming entrepreneurs and setting up businesses. And it was a fascinating subject.
Right, so tonight all the lionesses out there will be roaring.
That's exactly it. It's a wonderful analogy.
Yeah, thank you so much. Also with us is none other than Mireille Carrera. Thank you for joining us on the show. You're the MD Cora Associates, and of course you also are a coach, you know, when it comes to inspirational speakers and all that kind of a thing and mentoring people. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Right, and for you, Cora Associates, why?
Why Cora Associates?
Yeah.
Cora Associates is actually inspired by the name, which is Cora. It's a Kinyarwanda name. What it means actually various things that are depending on how you use that word. Yeah. So Cora in Kinyarwanda is pronounced Kora, as in to work. Gukora ikintu, which means to create something, or gukorana n'abantu is to collaborate, and also Kora umuntu ku mutima, which means to inspire, to touch.
Touch someone's heart.
To touch someone's heart, also to inspire as well, which is what we do as a coaching company, focusing on personal development, on motivation, on really helping individuals, both men and women, to live their lives to the fullest. Yeah. So that was the inspiration. Being a Rwanda name, I thought, you know what, let's take it and let it out to the world.
Yeah. So I have a feeling I know where the initiators of the Cora Awards got the name from.
2 separate things, but I guess the spirit is the same.
It's the same. Exactly. So let's talk about this key thing that we're talking about today on the program. Not the first time we've put this issue on the agenda, the issue of gender equality and of course women and politics, women and power, women and poverty eradication, all in the name of looking at the journey, you know, towards uplifting women and saying that all of you can also do what your compatriots, the men, have been doing. But we still are talking about this issue. Yeah. Does it concern you, Melaine, that this thing is still an issue? Even after all the campaigns, all the talk that we've been talking, we still have it as an issue, as a concern?
Yeah, I think it's something that is an issue globally. I don't think it's something that is just pertinent to Africa and an African problem. I think gender parity worldwide is still a challenge. Some countries are getting it better than others and are really taking strides to make opportunities for women in all spheres of life and society open up. Rwanda is one of them. I think if I travel all over the world, and I certainly have Africa as a whole in my sphere of work. But the one thing I always find is that the issues are the same whether you're talking to people in the US, in Europe, here in Africa. Gender parity is still an issue, and the reason we still talk about it is because we haven't found the solutions yet. Yeah. And I think that is what we, with events as we are holding at the moment with the Global Women's Summit, I think is to actually keep the discussion forward so we can find the right solutions going forward. Yeah. And that doesn't matter whether it is talking about women in the home, talking about women in education, talking about women in business and entrepreneurship. There's still work to be done. Yeah,
there's still work to be done, and of course the talk has to continue going on. Yeah. Mireille, for you, I mean, does it concern you that we still are talking about this issue. I mean, after all the campaigns, after all the initiatives by those who have gone before us, we are still having it as a concern. You know, we have people at places who still discriminate, you know, based on gender. We still have women out there not being given opportunities to lead. And we're still having these campaigns. Does it concern you?
It doesn't concern me. It's actually quite a positive thing for me that we are talking about it. Just like my colleague Melanie said, talking about it is really something we'll have to do until a solution is found. But really what I think we will be focusing on is what went wrong. You know, I guess the issue to address is what went wrong.
What went wrong for you?
What went wrong?
What went wrong? What went wrong?
My goodness, there's a number of things that went wrong across the world. So I guess when you look at gender parity or gender equality, there are various aspects that led to that gap between men and women generally, or boys and girls, whether it was in the name of religion or it was in the name of you know, society putting women's roles in a particular box, in a particular corner of a family, and that of course had a ripple effect on other areas of life. That could be one aspect. So now for me, I believe that we are playing a catch-up game. So as long as that parity is not reached, we will still need to talk about it, and not just talk about it, but take action. You know, so act upon the words, not just talk about it, but words. When it comes to entrepreneurship, which is what Melanie focuses on, when it comes to lionesses, some of the solutions to the issues are of course economic. So economic empowerment is one of many, but also legislation. So it really is something that we need to look at on a holistic level and quite broadly for that concern or issue to be solved.
So you feel there's need first for us to understand where we went wrong, and where we went wrong, you feel, is partly the traditions which, you know, cut out the place of a woman, and now we need to not just understand the problem, but move towards actions to solve that particular situation.
Or perhaps, if I could just say, maybe we didn't understand the place of a woman in the first place, and that's
why we put them where we think they belong.
That's right.
For you, does it concern you that we still have these kind of things embedded in our minds for those who are still having them back there? And she says that it is now time to act, take action, and not just talk about these things. But for others, critics of some of these international days, they'll say, it's just a day like any other day. It will come, they will go, hold placards, call for parity, and then after that, it's business as usual.
You know what? I think it's business unusual these days. And I think getting the message out there and actually starting the debate is so important. And I think what's driving a new change, and the way that women are now demanding real, genuine parity in the marketplace, in the home life, in the education space, it's been led by a new millennial approach with young people, young women, who are saying, actually, I don't want things to be like they were for my mother, for my aunt, for my grandparents. I want it to be different, and I want things to be done my way. Millennials are extraordinary game changers. And what I see that is really exciting here in Africa is there is a new generation being driven by millennials that are saying, we want something to be different, and we can actually create it ourselves. We're not going to wait for somebody else to do it for us. So there's a new generation of women, and I've met them here over the last few days in Rwanda. I have been seriously impressed by young millennial women who are saying, if it doesn't exist, we'll create it. If I want to make something happen, I'll invent it. I can't wait for other people to make it happen for me. The lovely thing about Rwanda that I think it's getting right is that the infrastructure to support that millennial thinking that says if it doesn't exist, I can make it happen, is actually here. It's not the case in the rest of Africa, and it's certainly not the case in the rest of the world. So that's what's really exciting, and I think that's the game changer. Yes, there is a lot to be done in the parity space, but millennials have a different way of approaching challenges. They don't wait for other people or government or society to actually make that change happen. They look at what the challenges are. They look at the problems and they say, let's just do things differently. Let's find a different way of doing things. Let's harness the power of technology. Let's actually change things by doing what we're good at and actually tackling a problem that other people over generations have struggled with.
Right.
And let's actually sort it out ourselves.
Yeah.
That's the game changer, I think.
Yeah, the game changer indeed. But of course, as we look at it as a game changer, and she puts it clearly, crystal clearly, that for her, she looks at it as a lesson that the world can learn from Rwanda. But for you as a native, as a local, do you feel your peers are not really seeing what outsiders are seeing about our country in terms of the opportunities, in terms of the gains that have been made, and what can even make that has been achieved today even more and blossom further?
Yeah.
Do you feel it that way?
I would agree with my colleague, but also being a Rwandan, local, native, but also global, I couldn't agree more with the fact that we are very blessed, and I feel proud to be Rwandan. When I look at the legal frameworks that our leadership or avails to us as women, so that's something I think I need to acknowledge. In the first place, because when you have the proper legal framework, everything else happens. So innovation that Melanie was talking about is enabled in a different dimension, and transformation really takes place. So yes, on one hand, it's great that we as Rwandans are doing really well, but we are still a little bit behind other nations around the world. So I guess it's a little bit of an exchange of, yes, we are spearheading transformation in Africa. When we look at politics, Rwandan women have got the most seats in parliaments in Africa. That's great. We've ticked that box when it comes to politics. But what about business? So when we compare Rwanda versus South Africa or Kenya, for example, there's still a lot of work to be done. And we as women, whether millennial or 20, 40, 50, 60 years old, we do have a role to play. And I think for me as a coach, being in the field of personal development, what is key is to understand that you too have a role to play. You too have something to give. You too have a contribution that it has a potential of leaving a great legacy. So it really all starts in the mindset. It all starts with overcoming fears, those internal barriers, as well as the external barriers that we mentioned earlier on that contributed to the gender parity being really difficult.
Because when you say that, it can be looked at as the proverbial way of this father who has given the children everything that they need. If it is textbooks, if it is school fees, if it's the best school in the world, I'm giving it all to you. It's at your disposal. Then you go to school and you perform dismally. You do not score high. This is what some people look at it when you say that Rwanda has all this, the environment the government has put in place, the opportunities, and of course the laws are there. But you still come back to say that we still are lagging behind. What would you blame in that? I mean, why?
I think that's a really interesting question.
That's a very interesting question. I wouldn't put a blame on anyone, but there is,
what's the issue?
Accountability is the
by
issue.
Who?
By individuals, by a person. So the tendency is always to blame the government anywhere in the world, right? Let's face it. But at the end of the day, as an individual, as a coach, as an entrepreneur, I think you cannot get anywhere unless you stand up for who you are and what you want to achieve in life. So the key word is accountability, knowing what you want and how you want to have it and what really will enable it. Yes, legal framework is one, but at the end of the day, if you want change, you have to create that change by yourself. Hence, Cora, which is the name of our company.
Because I'm trying to understand and digest that from this question that I have asked. When you say we have to blame ourselves, in this case, who do you mean we? The women who feel left out, discriminated upon, despite the good environment that you say is there, you feel that they are the ones to blame themselves?
There is no blame game. That's a problem. We've played for far too long a blame game. So my answer really is that there's no one to blame. There's nobody to blame himself or herself when it comes to innovation, transformation, and progress. Progress. It's really accountability. So I wouldn't blame any government for what's happening. If my life was not going in the direction I wanted, I would do anything necessary in my power to create a transformation.
Yeah.
So my
Yourself,
point,
as an individual.
well, we don't make ourselves.
Yeah.
So there's no such a thing as a man-made, self-man-made or a self-made woman. It's about accountability. It's just knowing what you want. Yes, that's really the key, the core element, knowing what you want and how to go about it, whether it is to gain capacity, to gain skills, to reach a certain point, or be educated to get to wherever you are going, is, I think, sometimes an issue where people lack courage or they are not in an environment that is conducive for them to really grow.
Yeah.
So there are a number of things that we can look at. Support, whether it's emotional support or financial support or a structure that allows a person, man or woman, to grow and really not blame. So the blame game usually starts when you are not empowered. So when you are disempowered, that's where you look at, oh, well, you make excuses.
So and so
exactly,
because
so
I
it's
failed.
easier, yeah.
How do you look at it for yourself?
yeah.
Are we looking for solutions at the wrong places? Because we have the environment, as she says, but still, we still have an issue.
You touched on something really interesting
Yeah.
in your question.
Yeah.
And you actually said, given that Rwanda has all of these incredible resources,
Yeah.
it has basically, for women in particular, you have access to resources, services, access to finance, you have access to expertise, you have access to markets. Basically, the foundation is actually laid to do something really quite incredible. We should be seeing large numbers of young women, all women entrepreneurs coming through the system.
But we're not seeing that.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. When this is my first visit here. I've been wanting to come here for a very long time, and I've been writing about Rwanda for quite some time, and particularly in the entrepreneurship space. And I asked the same question when I came here. Given that everything is here that would create probably one of the most perfect entrepreneurial environments, why are we not seeing large volumes of women entrepreneurs here? And I asked that question of a number of millennial women entrepreneurs that I met throughout the course of today.
Yeah.
And the response was really quite fascinating. Yeah, everything is here, but it's almost like it's too easy. You don't have to, the hunger is not there that you find in other countries, where sometimes because you become an entrepreneur because there's no choice. You become an entrepreneur because you want something that is not available to you unless you actually create it yourself. And here, because everything is available to make an enterprise happen, to build a business, and let's be honest about it, Rwanda has actually been voted #1 place in Africa to be a woman right now, and #6 in the world to be a woman entrepreneur. Now, only Scandinavia rates higher than Rwanda. So given the fact that we have this completely perfect climate in which to thrive as a woman entrepreneur.
Is it making us sit back, laid back,
Yes,
relax?
and that's exactly what everyone said
Can
to me today.
I
And I
agree
found
and
that
disagree with
fascinating.
you, Melanie?
Yeah.
I think that's where the debate becomes very interesting because from a Rwandan point of view or perspective, there might be a reason why perhaps you do not see why there is growth so quickly. It's because, let's not remember, we are almost 22-year-old country.
Sure. Yeah.
So things have changed drastically since 1994.
Absolutely.
So there has been a lot of things that we had to consider, and of course the legal frameworks that we have now in 2016 were not around 5 years or 10 years
That's
ago.
a very good point.
So yes, the state, the environment enables, is conducive in 2016, but
and for her, she says that is killing the hunger. To go the extra mile, to push for that. So
I would tend to
we have
disagree.
more of women now sitting back and still saying, okay, we are cool, the very is good, there's nothing
I am
to
met to
work
meet
hard
one
for.
of those in Rwanda. I haven't met one of that. But I think that the issue really is more on the capacity. So enabling women to really understand and believe that they also can do that. So the issue from I suppose a human behavior specialist as a coach is that before you actually get to see a physical, tangible result as an enterprise or something that is being created, there's a lot of internal barriers that you need, or wars that you need to fight before you actually get to say, right, I can also do that. So we have to undo a number of things that have been done in the past for us to really be able to see that quick change.
Like what? Like what do we have to undo now?
I I'd say undue fear. Yeah, I'd say undue fear, undue perhaps I wouldn't say trauma, but anything that has held back an individual to believe that they can also do that. But when it comes to entrepreneurship, which is one of the main topics of the conference, is that it takes a lot of courage anywhere, whether it's in Rwanda or anywhere else. There are statistics that say that over 90% of individuals on Earth may choose to remain in a secure environment of a salary or employment because they have a paycheck on every year or every month, so it pays the bills. So that it pays the bills mentality is very common with men and women, and it's even more pronounced with women, whereby you really don't want to take risks of losing a salary, or you really don't want to take risks of being different from your aunts, your village, or what your family is expecting you to do. So that, for me, I think is the biggest barrier to overcome for that change, that transformation that you are seeing everywhere else in the world to be accelerated.
But I think, and I think the interesting thing is, that's why millennials are the game changers.
Yeah.
Millennials are fearless. It doesn't matter where you speak to a millennial, anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
They approach life differently. They don't carry the same sort of baggage that we do as, as older people, older entrepreneurs, older people in any sphere of society. They come at it with a completely fresh eye, and they make things happen that haven't been done before, or they simply, they just don't believe it's impossible. Yeah. And I think that's what's different about it. So I think, yes, I absolutely hear everything you're saying, and you obviously have great insight. You're here. This is home, and I'm looking at it from a Pan-Africanist perspective and an outsider's perspective. Yeah. But I genuinely do see millennials coming at it and changing that dynamic, because they do have a fearlessness and they want something different. And they're not prepared to actually accept the way that things have been, simply because the journey was hard for their fathers and their mothers and their grandparents. I think they do come at it with a fresh eye that says, well, it's for us to actually change it.
Yeah. There's a key concern here by several people who, when we always talk about equality issues, especially when it comes to gender, they always have another way of looking at it. I have someone on Twitter here who's called George, who says, we have motivated girls and less inspired boys going through school. So he says, we have motivated girls and less inspired boys are going through school. The fear by some people that we seem to be now living out. When you talk of gender parity, when you talk of gender equality, it's not necessarily about the women. It's about both genders. Yeah. And the fact that we have that conversation and others feel like, wait a minute, we are forgetting something in the process. Does it ever concern you that these issues are raised here and there?
I think that's a healthy conversation to have. Yeah. I mean, I think because we've got to the point now where we are actually talking about gender as such a mainstream issue, is because people are not prepared for it to be as it has been. Yes, women are playing catch up, but you're quite right. Men are now saying, well, actually, because of this catch up game, perhaps we are now the people that are playing our own catch up game. Yeah. The point is, you don't go backwards, you keep the debate going, and this program is all about debate. Yeah. You keep having those difficult conversations and make sure that you don't go back to a situation where one or other gender feels that they are at a disadvantage. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the great thing about debate, it's the great thing about conversation, it's what happens in government, it's what happens in the home, it's what happens in all aspects of society. Yeah. Okay. There's another one here, which is very interesting, and of course, it's one that we need to build on when we come back after the break. And it's from Rose Rawi, who says, Rwanda has incredible foundation. Why don't we see massive women entrepreneurs? Quite right.
Very good question.
Good question. Do we have an answer?
Yeah, the answer is that's what we are here for. That's why Global Women's Summit is happening tomorrow, and there is in fact a competition taking place at the summit whereby we will be rewarding top entrepreneurs with innovative ideas. Yeah. So we should be seeing more, and I agree with my colleague what she said earlier, but it's a journey.
It is a journey, that's quite right.
This initiative is going to help us see more entrepreneurs?
It is a launching pad for it.
The fact that it only happens during International Women's Day, we have to wait another year?
Not at all. It's a
No,
launching
that's
pad.
exactly it.
It's a launching pad for different programs that will be taking place, really to create more entrepreneurships and, of course, increase economic empowerment and have more women have access to capital, etc. And it will have a ripple effect on the Rwandan economy in general. But great question, and I believe that we could do more, we could see more. We need to leave that mentality of employment behind.
Yeah.
That's my view.
When we return, we unpack the answers to that particular question. It's a very important one.
Yes,
of course, we need to take advantage of the environment that we have, that you mentioned earlier on, and you said, if you're a woman out there, out of the wild, out of Rwanda, you'd
It's the
wish...
perfect environment right now.
But why are we not seeing more of them?
Yeah.
So we need to unpack that when we return. Of course, keep tweeting, talk to us, share your thoughts on those particular issues. I can see you, Barack, keep tweeting. You say that how do we maximize this amazing call? And of course, it's that particular call for this particular new generation of women that want to invent things and not wait for people to do it for them. So the question that Barack is asking, how do we, maximize that particular call? When we come back, we will be sharing more of that. Tweet us at Debate411. The hashtag is Debate411. You can tweet me directly at Eugene and Nangwe. We'll be reading them and sampling them right here in the program. Stay with us. So Natasha, are we cornering our teachers? Are we being unfair to them?
At the end of the day, Fiona also mentions that the more you show them this condom, the more you're opening up their minds to having sex. But do you feel well represented? Do you think the media issues are well taken to the table when it comes to advocacy? How do we convince them and say that we shut it down because you exceeded the limits? The word conservation looks just complicated, but how do we simplify this?
What role do our schools play then? And the people around our children, what role can they play in order to avoid these children becoming a menace in the society?
Yes. Caroline, you just want to sound moral, but you're just not accepting the reality on the ground.
Well, I want to sound moral and encourage it and practice it.
All right, thank you so much for making time and, of course, choosing to be with us on Debate 411. Every Monday and Wednesday, we are here from 9 p.m. talking, of course, about different issues that affect us in the society with one particular aim, moving those conversations forward and finding applicable solutions to them. My name, as always, is Eugene Nangwe. You're tweeting us at Debate 411 or at Eugene and Nangwe, and I'm of course reading some of those particular comments that are coming through. I have Kaibanda Julian, who says that discriminatory laws and customs constrain women time, choices and abilities. Do we have these discriminatory laws? I mean, unless if she's talking about elsewhere. Let's get down to Rwanda and of course the environments that we are in. If we are to solve these particular issues and, of course, move the conversation forward and go back to that particular question that had been asked earlier on, if you sit back today as a person who's been coaching and telling people and, of course, doing these particular activities towards equality and motivating people, are there any of this that you see in yourself that we need to work on in order to push for this equality issue?
Yes, so very interesting comment. But when it comes to discriminatory laws, I have to say that we're very fortunate that in Rwanda things are very different. But just to remind you that our company is headquartered in Dubai, in United Arab Emirates, and I have personally been living in Dubai for a long time. So when it comes to discrimination and laws that do not enable women to do what they wish they would want to do, I can relate to that because I have lived it and I've seen it in the Middle East. So I can see the impact it has on women's lives, on families, and on the economy of that particular country. But in the context of Rwanda, again, as I said, we are very blessed that we've
So
got
we have
that.
no excuse of saying that we have any discriminatory law. We need to
I'm
be
not
all
aware
out
of
there.
any at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really the environment, as we said earlier, is facilitating any transformation, any innovation. In fact, there are so many initiatives really to push women and girls to do different things. So recently I've heard about initiatives in the innovation space, like IT. You've got girls in ICT or Miss Geek competition, really just to get more women in technology.
And that's a very strong sector in this country.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. So there is more that can be done when you look at engineers. I wish there were more women in being engineers or women in different sectors where we haven't historically played a role in, but I wouldn't put that in the corner of discrimination. So as far as I know, there is not such a thing over here. But when you look at the African context, perhaps yes. And when we look at the globe, when we look at things that may enable that discrimination, there are a number of reasons that may happen.
Yeah. Before I go back to Melinda, I want to understand from you.
Yeah.
Candidly speaking, it's a key question that was actually posed out here concerning the environment and the lack of maximization, for lack of a better word, of that particular environment in terms of having more women entrepreneurs, women business owners, women CEOs and MDs. Why do you think we do not have this?
Very good question today. I think there are enabling environments. When I look at entrepreneurship predominantly, you do have things like the Private Sector Federation that has a specific chamber for women entrepreneurs. In fact, that we have been collaborating with on this summit. So I think we have some structure, we have a framework to enable more entrepreneurs, but from my perspective as a coach, I will emphasize the fact that perhaps there isn't enough encouragement in our environment really to help us propel our ideas, our thoughts, our businesses to another level. So if you were to ask me what I wish to see more of, I guess that's the answers of your question, is I wish to see more of family members, friends, and also businesses really encourage women and men to really follow through their ideas, follow through their aspirations to grow. Because every human being wishes to grow. Every human being wishes to go from A, which is today, to B, because that's in the nature of who we are and what we do, regardless of the gender.
So we are still wishing. That's really a big concern, that we are still at the level of wishing that we, like you say it, like I wish to see this. Yet with the environment outside, as people who are out there, when we have this, the World Economic Forum or these other reports that report on Rwanda's gender, they say that this is the country to be.
On paper, it's perfect.
Exactly. So on paper, it's perfect. If you were to be born in Rwanda, if such a thing was to happen right now, what different would you have done with this environment that you say that you guys have, but you're not really taking full maximum advantage of?
I've actually realized two things whilst I've been here on the ground in Rwanda, but also whilst I've been talking to many Rwandan women entrepreneurs over the last 2 or 3 years that we've been launching the Lionesses of Africa community. And two things emerged that I think are really quite interesting. One, I don't think there are enough really powerful role models here, women entrepreneurs that have gone the hard yards, that have had to really build a business from scratch, that have built a global brand. I think that's critical. We need any women entrepreneurs anywhere in the world.
They need to sit back and say, I want to be like her.
That's exactly
Absolutely.
it. In the
Yeah.
corporate world, you can do it. You can see someone who's broken through the glass ceiling,
Yeah.
who's made their mark in the corporate world, and you can say, yes, I aspire to be that woman.
Yeah.
But in the entrepreneurial world, we need to be able to see in large numbers, and particularly millennials, they need to actually see large numbers of women entrepreneurs that have started from scratch, that have built a business from nothing, that have built it on passion,
Yeah.
because a lot of women entrepreneurs, one of the key traits to success
Yeah.
is that they turn passion into business.
No, but we have Mireille here. Isn't she
Classic
a role
example,
model
but
enough?
she's one. I think it's the question of quantity.
Quantity.
Yes, there are some standout women like Mireille and others that I've met whilst I've been here on the ground and that I've profiled over the past 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
But there are not enough.
Yeah.
And that's critical. If you're a young woman coming through your last year of university and you're taking those critical decisions, do I
Yeah.
start a business? Do I go into mainstream corporate? Do I travel the world? Do I sit and have a family and actually not start a business?
Yeah.
If you don't have enough role models that sit in that entrepreneurial space or sit in that corporate space that are the people that you aspire to.
I think,
they're
yeah,
your
so
mentors.
mentorship is a very key, critical role really
Absolutely.
to, whether it's economic empowerment or women growing in
But
one
first of all,
area.
before you go there, just pause for a moment.
Okay.
Do you agree that we
Totally.
have not had enough role models as women entrepreneurs who we look up to and as young women and ladies and say that I want to be like her? This is a problem.
Yeah, I think it's one of the problems that delay really transformation or progress. And I couldn't agree more with the fact that women need more role models or more mentors to inspire them. Actually take that inspiration into an action that is tangible, that creates transformation.
Yep.
So should we have more mentors, more women that even take time to pour back into the younger girls? I think we'll see that quick transformation
such a powerful
so
point.
sooner, and it will be more impactful. So
Yeah.
some of the things we'll be talking about at the summit tomorrow will be the importance of coaching and mentoring, because when you are a mentor, you help the next person to cut down in half that journey that you have gone through. So you save a lot of time by having someone say, hey, you know what, I've been there, don't go that way, go this way. So you follow that person. But why is it not happening? I guess could be one of the questions, is because you invest a lot of time in giving something back to someone. So mentors will need to see the potential in the mentee, but also invest time for that tangible transformation to take place.
Yeah, but you're based in UAE, right?
I am now in Rwanda. We have opened a subsidiary here in Rwanda.
Right.
And what we are doing tomorrow is one of the greatest things that we are bringing to Rwanda.
Yeah, because why I ask that is probably that concern that someone might have and say, Mireille should be part of those people that should inspire us. But look, the search, which is right, of the bread and butter, takes them beyond our borders where we cannot reach them. So most of those who could be our mentors are away, they're not here. So what do? Should we now start thinking beyond just Rwanda and say, what other kind of women globally can I look up to if I cannot be able to get one who's basically, should we even be thinking about the borders really?
No.
We should be looking at beyond.
And yeah, it's a really interesting point. It comes back to this idea of particularly millennials who come out of the starting block thinking global. The whole advent of social media and the power of social media that means you can connect with anybody anywhere in the world 24/7 has meant that the world has shrunk. And therefore you actually, as a young aspirant entrepreneur or a young person who's thinking about going into the corporate world, you have role models at your fingertips potentially
Absolutely.
anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And because the world is shrinking and because you have access in that 24/7 social media space, your sphere of influence is different. I think what's really critical though is being able to see women that are close to you in your own environment having gone that journey. It's very different seeing an amazing woman that's become a top corporate player or a top entrepreneur when they're sat in California, or they're sat in London, or they're sat in India, wherever it happens to be.
You need to relate to
You
them.
need to relate to
yes,
them, and
that's
you need
right.
to have seen them go through the tough times,
Yep.
to have dealt with some of the challenges that they're dealing with on an everyday basis, and have come out the other side and said it's possible.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key game changer for particularly young women entrepreneurs. And funnily enough, the majority of women that I've met so far here that are entrepreneurs have all been millennial.
Yeah.
And they literally are changing the way that the face of entrepreneurship will actually be for Rwanda. They
And the
are
other
young
thing is,
people.
Melanie, I think what's key, it's great that you see someone in the US or over here locally and that you look up to, but for something to happen, you need to have that drive.
Yeah.
You need to want
Absolutely.
the change to happen.
Yeah.
So if you don't have that drive, you're not proactive
Yeah.
and reach out to someone that may impact your life, nothing will happen. So really it all starts with just going after it.
So we need to get off our comfort zones
Absolutely.
and go
Well,
for
I
it.
don't know. I'd have to disagree on that point because
Yeah.
I think we have to get out of our comfort zones. I think, can I tell you what's really interesting? And it comes back to this issue of, does Rwanda have just everything in this perfect storm of all the foundations being in place on paper, and it perhaps being a little too comfortable? I think potentially it's people coming out of that comfort zone and saying, well, let's actually take a chance, take a risk, and do something with more of an entrepreneurial mindset, something that isn't safe, something that does have a, well, will it succeed, will it not succeed element to it. So I think that's the interesting dynamic. So it's actually people coming out of that comfort zone, because I think it's very easy to become comfortable when everything is there for you, and to actually say, I'm going to take myself out of what I know and do something differently. And I think, again, it comes back to the ideas that millennials do things differently and are more prepared to take themselves out of their comfort zone than perhaps older women that could make an incredible contribution to business, to society, to community, and even in the entrepreneurial world.
Do you think then that some of those comfort elements should be a bit pulled back to stir up the thirst, that urge to look for them?
No, I don't. I actually think what Rwanda is doing right now is really progressive.
Yeah.
And I think it sends a really clear message to the rest of Africa and the world that if you do provide the right foundations and the right infrastructure for business to thrive and for women to thrive in that business environment, it is down to the women to actually take advantage of the opportunities that are there and to start creating the next generation of really exciting businesses, products, services, and different ways of doing things, and change the attitudes that go with it.
Yeah.
It takes time. You know, Marie said something
process.
really critical, that Rwanda is on a journey right now, and it's at the start of that journey. I mean, 20 years is nothing in the lifetime of a nation.
Absolutely.
And it's a journey, and you're on a particular stage of that journey. Entrepreneurs, young people, millennials, people that are changing their lives for the better, are doing it as part of that journey. So to take that something away because people aren't taking advantage of it sends the wrong message. I think we need to send a very clear message. And I think Rwanda is sending a really positive message to the world that it's getting so much right and it's putting the right foundations in place. It just might take a little longer for people to take advantage of those things.
Yeah. A key one here from Nikki on Twitter, and it says that in the words of President Paul Kagame, no one benefits if women are held back. We have to change mindsets, not just laws. But which school do we go to be taught about mindset change? That's the issue.
School of life.
You see, because
Life
most of the time people tell you, you have to change your mindset. Start changing your mindset. But how do we do that? How do we deal with that?
Yeah, but no one tells you to change your mindset. If someone tells you to change your mindset, that's control, that's manipulation. Yeah. And again, for me, I think it all has to do with accountability. So you take hold of your own mindset in deciding what you really want, what you want to see. And I couldn't agree more with that statement that if you hold someone back, be it a man or a woman, you won't see any change or progress happening. Yeah. So mindset, absolutely. Being a coach, I couldn't agree even more that it all starts within before it goes out. Yeah. It's an inside-out job.
So do you feel we haven't dealt with within ourselves?
The inside.
We haven't dealt with that?
That's right.
But again, that's a journey.
It is a journey.
That's a personal journey you have to go through.
That's right.
And I think you reach a point where maybe your goals in life or your surroundings or your aspirations change, and that changes your mindset. Circumstances can change your mindset, but it is a personal journey. People change it when it makes sense to them or when circumstances dictate it. And I think certainly, you know, some of the discussions that we're going to be having at the summit over the next 24 hours are going to be interesting in that space, because I think you're going to have a lot of people who are on a particular journey to changing their mindset or their life in one particular direction or another, and are looking for inspiration, motivation.
Exactly.
And, you know,
really,
the will
it
to do
goes it goes in line with my passion, really, which we turn into the coaching models that we do, which is called KORA, K-O-R-A. It's actually an acronym that talks about knowing yourself. So what you are saying is that the mindset is something that has to do with really knowing who you are, what you want, and also your strength. I guess people don't really take time to really know themselves, know their strengths, their gifts, their talents, their abilities, and what really drives them. So what drives you to do what you do, so that you are fulfilled, so that you know that you are living a life that is according to what your choices are, and not what your family dictates, or your circumstances, or your environment, or your past. So all of those things really design who we are, but they don't define who we are. We are the ones who define who we are.
Yeah, but is there an end game to this particular notion of traditions are continuing to hold us back? Will there be any end game to that? Because looking at that, it becomes one of the lists of the issues that still draw ladies and women behind. Our traditions, our cultures. And last time we had this conversation, someone says there's no tradition that is retrogressive unless, you know, it goes in other different ways. But of course, can we have an end game? Can we ever have an end to that particular sort of reason as to why we are lagging behind?
I wish I could say yes, we can have, but again, it's a process, it's a journey ahead. But when it comes to traditions, there are certain things that have created biases. So meaning, if you are making a choice to do this as a woman, you might be tagged as you know, a particular name. So that has created a certain aversion to making decisions. So not making a decision is really also going back. So. I think, to your question, can there be an end game? That's something I'd love to see in my lifetime.
Yeah. As you answer that, Rose says that she agrees that Rwanda is on the journey, but how do we accelerate the pace? Because yes, we'll always be in a journey, but are we going to just be saying, we're in a journey, relax, just take your time? Are we going to be there just being comfortable that we are in a journey? How do we accelerate this?
Well, again, I think it actually comes down to a new generation coming through that doesn't have time to wait and doesn't believe they have to.
Is that generation here today?
Yeah,
it's
the millennials. Look at anywhere in the world and look at where real change is happening and where pace of development is happening. You've actually got a millennial generation that doesn't want to be like their parents. They want things now. They're not prepared to wait for someone to invent it tomorrow. They're quite capable of inventing it today. And I think, do you know what's really interesting? I really enjoyed your question about, can you have progress and can you maintain tradition at the same time? Absolutely. I think it's simply a matter of time. And I think what's going to be
that time is what she's asking. How do we accelerate?
And I think that's the interesting thing. I think you're going to find millennials will actually dictate the pace of change in that space. They want the best of tradition, but they want to lose what didn't work and what doesn't work for them as a new generation coming through. But they want progress, and they want progress with a pace. And I think that will be the defining change factor. Because again, we can all sit down, we're all of a certain age, and if things have been done in a particular way in our lifetimes and for our generations. But the millennial generation coming through doesn't think like that.
Do you think you're part of that generation?
I wish.
You wish you were?
I would love to be.
So it's not the use and the mirrors that will change this space?
No, it's not. I would love to say that's the case, but we had our time. And we were part of a journey in a different time when there were different challenges. Millennials right now are going to dictate the pace of change. I genuinely believe that, whether it's in innovation, whether it's in the way things are done, whether it's changing attitudes, and particularly, you know, I think the real game changer has been technology. It's been access to a world through social media, through access to internet, through a different way of looking at the world and the world shrinking. And therefore the pace of change for them, it's easy. You know, you've actually got it at your fingertips. You've got it in your palm.
I think the key word that you use as we go, right. So the key word is want. Yeah, so you've used want many times.
That's exactly
I'm a
it.
coach, I have to pay attention to the words. So want is really the key word, and I couldn't emphasize the fact that it all starts with what you want and what you don't want, what you want changing. Yeah, and that really what creates accountability, transformation, and everything else that we wish to have. So for that, the transformation to take place, the individual needs to really demand it, request it, be proactive, and just really go after what they want. But now, I would leave the audience with a question: what do you really want?
That's the question for you. It's your parting question.
Yeah.
It's parting word. So as we go, do you feel that these international days have just become days like any other, where world leaders meet and come with microphones, talk to us, celebration, then we go back home? How do we justify? Others say that these are those events where we look for the budget, some money to do our activities. How do we justify these days and say the International Women's Day has had an impact in this way and this other way?
I think you
In
see
closing,
it. I think you see it very much for what it is.
Yeah.
It's a way of shining a spotlight on a particular issue,
Yeah.
but it's a way of, for the remaining days of the year,
Yeah.
to find the solutions to that particular issue.
Yeah.
That's the trick. It's about getting people talking, shining the spotlight on a particular issue.
Yeah.
In this instance,
Yeah.
it's about women's empowerment. It's about women fulfilling their potential in society. And if it gets people talking for the other 364 days of the year
Yeah.
about the solutions to get there, then an international day is the way to get the
So one more
conversation
time, we'll be
going.
talking about gender parity throughout the other.
Absolutely that.
Yes. It's the last question as we go. Someone says here, can the Tomorrow Global Summit help at least set a target for that transformation? Will it?
Yes, so there will be practical ways really for that transformation to take place. Just to add up on what Melanie just said, that the summit taking place tomorrow is not just another summit where you have, talks, panels, and, we all go eat and drink and that's it. The difference really, the game changer for Global Women's Summit for the first time in Rwanda is that we will be showcasing action. Women who have done something. So the 5 women entrepreneurs that will be at that event will really showcase to the world that yes, there are women, yes, they've achieved something, and then they will be rewarded quite handsomely about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, both of you.
Thank
Of
you.
course, for sharing your insights. We're looking forward to being part of this particular journey. And of course, tag us along anytime, any day.
Thank you
Thank
so much
you.
for having us.
Thank you so much. Of course, for you too who's been tweeting us, thank you for being a part of the program. Richard, you're concerned. You say, was the topic tonight women and leadership or women and entrepreneurship? I think when you are an entrepreneur, you can be a global leader.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Economically and in different ways, all right? So we still managed to tackle the whole issues that we're looking at. But of course, generally, we're looking at the issue of the International Women's Day. And of course, the focus was looking at some of the key issues that women and of course the world has been going through towards the journey of equality. We'll see you again on Wednesday, same time, same place. So do join us then. My name as always is Eugene Anangwe. Goodbye.
This is an EA production.